It's a universal agreement that the video game industry can't stop making out with the zombie genre. I guarantee you, the majority of video games are composed with these shambling corpses. However, I can't blame them. Unleashing a weapon's full wrath and devastation on an evil undead with no remorse will always fill us with a special type of glee. But it is important to keep things fresh once in a while. Deadness is a VR horror game that uses the oversaturated zombie genre for an intriguing concept. A wheelchair horror simulator. What's more terrifying than dealing with tank controls? Tank controls plus the mobility of a wheelchair. You won't be able to run with functional legs, oh no. Instead, you'll be frantically rolling away in your wheelchair. For the most part, Deadness executes this concept quite astonishingly. Being trapped in claustrophobic environments while wheelchair bound does insert a special kind of dread. Unable to defend yourself or leg it in a different direction from horrendous danger is probably a common nightmare for the majority of Mon. Deadness does utilize this quite effectively in the beginning portions of the game. As you slowly stroll through the linear halls, praying your squeaky wheelchair doesn't alert all of them in the vicinity. Thankfully, they are also the walking deaf, so just worry about not being spotted. It's a fun mechanic that offers a fair share of thrills and tension. However, by part 3, all sense of dread and horror will be drained from your body. The biggest problem for Deadness Horror is that its bow lacks strings. Sure, being chased in a wheelchair has its moments. Other than that, Deadness relies a bit too much on scripted jump scares and dark lit areas to generate horror. Which is a darn shame, because if they added more meat to its already strong bones, this could have been a damn good horror game. Take these mechanics for example. Having us bathe in zombie blood to bypass a horde of zombies, quickly trying to navigate through them before time runs out, would open the window of opportunities for adding more terror and tense moments. Tragically, it's only used once and never again afterwards. The second mechanic that closes windows is using dismembered limbs to distract zombies. It's brought up early in the game, yet only used like twice. Then forgets about it for eternity. Why not use this mechanic more? Forcing us to use critical thinking if it's worth having a temporary distraction clog up our inventory space. Speaking of, inventory management is severely underutilized. Instead of a traditional inventory space, where a character stores everything in an invisible briefcase, in Deadness, you must carry everything in the confines of your lap. Does it sound extremely limiting and possibly annoying? Sure. But given the context of the story and setting, it would make sense and add a nice layer of immersion, as long as it's not overbearing. I do ponder if the developers were self-conscious about this, so they made it to where you only need to carry no more than one item. Out of all of these, I was disappointed with this the most. These shortcomings might be connected to how the game is structured. You see, there is no exploration, only straightforward paths with very little backtracking. There is an argument to be made that traversing through a labyrinth in a wheelchair would be greatly tedious. My argument: don't make it the size of a Resident Evil game. Condense it down to a reasonable size and create plenty of shortcuts. Perhaps, in a sequel we could see this concept and mechanics be expanded on. Now, what about the story? Quick question. Have you seen Resident Evil? Scratch that. Have you seen any zombie mediums? Stock morally bankrupt corporation do inhumane experiments to achieve immortality. Predictably, they end up creating an infectious virus that turns everyone into undead cannibals. Clearly, in-depth storytelling isn't the game's focus. They want all the focus to be on the concept and gameplay. and I can completely respect that. Some of my favorite games of recent years have been gameplay focused over storytelling, so don't expect to be chewing on any juicy theories or character dissections, because none exist. Before I wrap things up, I do want to point out a stickler that does hamper the experience. There are times my character's hand stretches out like Mr. Fantastic's and getting stuck on random objects, therefore trapping me and leading to my untimely demise. Deadness functions as a horror attraction you would typically find at a carnival. Definitely one of the more memorable ones you can experience. However, you probably won't be yearning for a second trial. Has a nice fun concept that's mostly executed well, but is let down by its slight unpolished state, lack of genuine scares, and not much meat on its mechanics. I mostly enjoyed my time with Deadness, however, I don't see myself returning to it. If this looks interesting to you, then feel free to check it out. This is the Horror Connoisseur, signing off.